Welcome to the market recap for September 29th. Three things, or a couple things, to remember. 5-minute candles, 30-minute overlays. These are ATR ranges. This is your previous day close. This is your bull pivot, bear pivot, mid-range pivot, and then this is your +1 ATR, and then on the opposite there's a -1. Also in between, they also have some fib pivots, which are very good to use because it gives you a reference where things could possibly go in between the pivots. And then you have VWAP. That's it. That's all you need when it comes to trading, at least trading the plan. This gray area was a gap, and previously a true value gap. So we'll talk about that later. You don't really need to know the context of the day. If I was blind and I didn't know, overall in the market, if we're bullish or bearish on a daily, weekly, whatever, you just have to play what's in front of you with no emotions and a systematic rule, and you'll do just fine with this strategy. You can wake up, you don't need to know how to draw lines, you just open up your computer and start trading these lines. You have to build trust around them because when you're first starting to use it, it's almost too good to be true to believe that they're actually pretty accurate, but they are because it deals with range, and the market respects certain zones and range because it's computer driven nowadays. So again, I'm Central Time, so I'll be talking in Central Time. Oh, I guess I noticed that I don't have times below here, but we'll just go through and look at it visually, and I'll give you a sense that right here, this is the 12 o'clock time period, everything in between, and these are 30-minute candles. So easy to sort of figure out. This is your first half hour, 8:30 is open, 9:30 Eastern time. Then you have your first hour, this is 9:30. So instead of actually showing you, doing this and this, for this session, I'll just show you the entire morning session. So when you wake up and you see this massive gap up, a lot of times it freaks people out because you're like, oh my gosh, look at this massive gap up. You almost ran, like 150 points, gap up. So take a deep breath and picture what the day could be like. Imagine if you gap up this big, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to either chop around up here, because this is your full range. It could go to an extension, but what I've noticed is if 3 to 5%, maybe even 2% of the time, it'll go to an extension. Other than that, you just trust that it's going to stay within here. So you got to not be biased, and you have to play different sides. You can be bullish but also be bearish, or bearish and bullish. It's a weird way of thinking, but in this case I'll show that you're still bullish on the day because this is where you're opening, but you're also bearish intraday. So this can be somewhat tricky to play, because a lot of times what people do is, if you notice, you can draw a line right here, and this is in a trend. So a lot of times what people might think is, oh, we're in a flag, it's a lower high, higher low, and you found support right here. So, which is great when you see this, because you know that if this ends up forming, it's got to go somewhere. So one would think you don't want to anticipate, because I think I did this day, but I quickly reversed. In hindsight, it looks easy, but in the moment it's a lot harder, because you're like, oh, it's going up. 5 minutes later, boom, drops, comes back down. You see this right here, this candle right here tells me the sentiment for the day. I hate to say it, I mean, it's that simple, but it's the sentiment for the day. The fact that the first hour you cannot stay above the mid-range ATR means that it's sort of weak, and we might end up trending down. So with that said, I'll go ahead and delete that and that. It may still come back up, but overall I want to be bearish, and I want to be aiming for this gap fill, right? Not just that, but I mean, look at these levels from here to here. That's 100 points, 50 points, so it's 150 points. There's more points to the downside than there is to the upside, so I rather make my bet to the downside. And like the saying goes, don't fight the trend. So you don't want to be counter trending, like, going long when you should be going short. Just wait it out. So here it drops. What you want to do is wait for a pullback. It pulls back, you get in. Right here I ended up getting stopped out thinking that it's going to reverse, but you just breathe, hold on, wait a couple 5-minute candles, and boom, comes back down. And then right here, if it doesn't fail right now, then you know you're in a consolidation. This should have came up, tapped here, and then failed quick. But the fact that it came and broke above and then came here tells me that this is consolidating. So it's going to be a little while until it makes the move. So you just have to have patience. So what does it do? Comes down, it drops below, it fakes people out, and then it closes back above that support. What does it do? It comes all the way back up. But now I really want to be eyeing this mid-range ATR because I'm going to get in short and I'm going to hold now for the next move because I know that it's got to do something. It's either got to break up or go down, but it's still below, so it's resistance until proven otherwise. So you got to be careful with how you're thinking of, oh my God, you see this green candle, now I got to go long. You see a green candle, but it's below resistance, so you shouldn't be going long. That's why it's super critical to visualize these lines. So now what do? You go short, and boom, immediately it drops. It comes down to the second fib, and then within 5, 10, 15 minutes, it makes a 100-point move. Sell, and you wait and see. Then you can see for about an hour it ends up consolidating underneath this fib, and it could not clear on a 5-minute. So that's telling me it's even weaker, and so I might try for another short and get in right here. And what does it end up doing? Comes all the way and almost fills the gap just in the morning session. So again, morning, you need to come up with a plan, not necessarily to be biased, but look at where things possibly could go and what's your best risk reward. This is right here tells you really what's going to happen. If this actually came back, you should have gone long right here. This tells me if you would have got stopped out, this tells me that we are now possibly going to fill this area. That's how I can easily predict sort of the move. And again, it's not going to all go in one straight line. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times it takes a while. It's going to take 30 minutes or a couple hours, but that's your morning session. And along the way, there was a lot of points to be made. Even if you just held one contract, again, that's $1,000 to $1,500 all right in here. Actually, more than that. 100 points at one contract is $2,000, and 50 points is $1,000. So that's $3,000 of holding one contract, and that could have been right here. One contract holding until the end of the morning session, all the way down here. So now let's go into the afternoon session. So now I'm going to flip and compartmentalize. Now you are actually, you know what? I'm going to delete this so we can see what's going on right here. So now by the end of, you filled the gap almost, and it's almost 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock, we needed to get above this bull pivot in order to see some kind of recovery in the day for the afternoon between 12 and 12:30. So if you don't, where are we right now? Ask yourself a question. In this chart, where are we? Great. Don't know what your answer is, but I'll tell you. We're now in the box. What do? It's a boxed play now. You're now in a potential consolidation within the box. What does it end up doing? Now this is resistance. You can tell that it tap, 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 came back below. Now it's resistance, and now you hold until you get down to the bear pivot. What does it do? It almost gets down to here, but doesn't, and then it reverses. But look, it chops the rest of the day in between the bull and bear pivot. It tried right here and then immediately yanked. So, I mean, there's a lot of points right here to be made. I think I remember playing in this to where it chopped around and then got this move, and then immediately in 5 minutes you almost had 40, 50 points, and then I switched and then got another 40, 50 points, and then I let this chop around, got in, got another 40, 50 points, and then When I saw it come up here to VWAP, I assumed that this was going to be resistance, got one contract, and got another 40, 50 points. I mean, this was like 200 points right here, just going back, forth, but playing the big range and not playing the small candles. You wait until you get as close as you can and set yourself a stop at 10 to 20 points. So with that said, that is how you can recognize what the afternoon can bring. And until proven otherwise, this needed to break out right here in order to see some more momentum up here. Other than that, if it didn't, you can assume that it's going to at least come back down here. Did not break below here. It did right here, and then immediately faked. So because it came down here and came back above, you could have easily got in right here and anticipated long, because this is your look below and fail. This is your fakers. This can be really violent right here. And sure enough, the last or 10 minutes after the market closed, it ended up coming back up here. So how do I also know where this is support? Look right here. This was the previous day afternoon session. This was support. So right there is a good indicator. And then look, you can see that it doesn't necessarily tap exactly. So when you get close enough, take your gains and move on. So that is your September 29th recap. This would be considered a full range ATR play. Full range, why? Because you actually in the morning almost hit a full range, but then throughout the day it came all the way from the mid-range down to the bear pivot. So if you draw it from here, like your measured move from here to here, this is the same move from here to here on point wise. So once again, you have a full range ATR play, even though it's not actually trading that actual full range. So trust in the pivots, use it, support resistance, be nimble, trade small, and hold for the bigger picture, and you'll do just fine.